Obama got a prize. He didn't even know what he got it. He got elected, and they gave it to Obama for doing absolutely nothing but destroying our country. Now, he was not a good president. The worst president is greater than years from now. People will still talk about the strange tension that filled the White House the day Barack Obama walked into the Oval Office to meet Donald Trump. Because it wasn't just another political meeting. It felt more like the calm before a storm. The kind where every hallway seems quieter than usual, and even the footsteps echoed differently against the marble floors. Staff members whispered in low voices. Security guards stood a little straighter than normal, and somewhere in the middle of all that silence sat Trump behind the famous desk, hands clasped together, staring at the door, as if the entire room was waiting for a moment that had been building for years, because the truth was these two men carried history between them. A history that stretched back to the time when Trump had loudly Obama's birthplace, and Obama had responded years later with a cool, unforgettable roast at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, a moment many people still replay online. And now the tables had turned. Trump held the office, the title, the power, and he had invited Obama in for what was officially described as a discussion about national policy and unity. But anyone paying attention could sense that something deeper was happening beneath the polite language. Because when the door finally opened and Obama stepped into the room, calm as ever, the air seemed to tighten like a drawn bowstring. Trump stood up with a grin that looked confident but slightly forced, stretching out his hand as cameras clicked outside the room. Barack, some of the rhetoric that's been taking place in these Republican primaries and Republican debates, I don't think it's restricted, by the way, to Mr. Trump. I mean, I find it interesting that everybody's focused on Trump, primarily just because he says, in more interesting ways, what the other candidates are saying as well. He said casually, while Obama replied with the same steady tone he had always used, Mr. President, and for a moment the two men simply sat across from each other, the sunlight from the tall windows spilling across the polished desk between them like a quiet spotlight on a stage. Obama placed a neat folder in front of him, filled with organized documents about the economy, foreign policy, and education, clearly prepared for a serious discussion about the country's future. But Trump leaned back in his chair with that familiar smirk and decided to steer the conversation somewhere else entirely. Yeah, but Obama was not a good president. Is greater than. Are you going to do something with the airport in Chicago? Is greater than him a prize? How many months after he won the election and then they gave the Peace Prize? Right? He's right after, are you going to do that? My election was a much more important election. You didn't answer it. Casually mentioning that people still talked about Obama's birth certificate, that some folks still wondered where he was really born. And instantly the room froze because everyone recognized the old conspiracy being dragged back into the conversation. The same rumor that had followed Obama for years. The same rumor that had already been disproven again and again. Yet Obama didn't react with anger or frustration. He simply looked at Trump for a moment and asked calmly, "You're still on that?" And the question landed heavier than any insult could have. Trump chuckled awkwardly and said he was just repeating what people were saying, trying to brush it off like it was harmless talk. But Obama slowly opened his folder, pulled out a document, and slid it across the desk with the quiet confidence of someone who had done this before. It was his birth certificate, the same one that had been shown publicly years earlier. And Obama simply said, "There it is again. You can check it as many times as you like. The paper hasn't changed." And for the first time since the meeting began, the tension shifted. Trump's smile flickered for a split second as the clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence. He adjusted his tie and laughed it off, saying, "Well, that settles it." But Obama leaned back slightly and replied in the same calm voice, "It's been settled for years, Donald." And suddenly the room felt different because what had started as a provocation had turned into something else entirely. Trump tried another angle, saying he preferred action over speeches, implying that talk was cheap and results mattered more. But Obama responded with a faint smile and said softly that doing things is easy. Doing the right things is the real challenge, and the sentence hung in the air like thunder rolling through a quiet sky. Trump stopped tapping his pen and glanced around the room as if searching for a way to regain control of the conversation. But Obama never raised his voice, never mocked him, never lost his composure. He simply stayed calm, answering each jab with patience instead of anger. And after a long pause, Obama looked around the office for a moment before turning back and asking gently if they were ready to talk.